Good afternoon everyone and welcome to the Drum webinar in association with Criteo, the OmniChannel opportunity. My name is Justin Pearce from the Drum and I'll be moderating this webinar. OmniChannel marketing is one of the hottest topics in the market. At the Drum we cover this subject almost daily. Everyone knows the reward, everyone knows the benefit this form of marketing will bring, but at the same time there are huge challenges ahead. Every brand wants to be an omnichannel marketer, but I think most brands, if they're honest, are still struggling with how to really pull that off. So we're going to help. Spend the next hour or so, we've got two amazing speakers that are going to take you through how to do omnichannel marketing, give you some tips, some tricks, and some great case studies, some real-world case studies showing how your brands you know and love are doing it too. So how it's going to work, if you can see on your screen, on the right hand side of your screen is your control panel. There's a little box for questions. You can give us questions throughout the webinar. I will then, right at the end, after about 40 minutes or so, I'll pick some of the best, some of the most interesting, and put those to our expert speakers. Now, lots of people ask us this every time we do a webinar, and yes, there will be a recording of this sent to you after we finish broadcast. Everyone that's registered will get a full recording of today's webinar. So I'd like to hand over in a second now to our first guest speaker, Nicole Cavell, Sales Director, Brand Solutions at Criteo, and she'll be followed by Caroline Reynolds, VP of Paid Search iProspect, taking us through those incredible case studies. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Nicole.
Hi everyone, happy to join everyone here. So we are going to take everyone through the agenda right now, which is about the omnichannel reality, first and foremost, and what is the present situation today. The next impact on online to offline symbiosis. What's the mobile impact? What are the brand challenges that all of this now presents? What are some of the marketing solutions to solve those challenges? And then ultimately taking a look at some case studies in areas of success where brands have been effectively able to navigate this situation today. So first, looking at what's the situation at hand and how does it exist in today's world? So first, we really can't look at retail in silos anymore. The whole idea of retail and e-commerce and some kind of virtuous struggle is over. Product awareness can just as easily come from online as it can come from television. Today, everyone moves from watching TV to being in a store to using their phone simultaneously through both actions, whether it's to check for product visibility, availability. It's not offline to online, it's just commerce today. And the direct result to that is that everyone is a shopper at any time. Commerce is 24/7 now, and brands need to recognize that everyone is able to purchase at any point in this journey. So let's see what the first element to look at on this, and that's really going to be online and offline, and how do these worlds now merge together. So online is now typically the first touch point of discoverability. People are using every possible device to not just research purchases, but also become aware of new products and services. And you can think about anyone's general shopping experience. So I'm going to a big event this weekend and I need a new dress. So I start on johnlewis.com, seeing what's available there on my desktop. Perhaps I look at some search opportunities to see if there's some other stores that might be fitting what I need. Then I might engage with some social media offerings. Really, I'm going through all these different touch points to help me on that path to purchase, to ultimately decide what I'm looking for. For businesses though today, it's really about recognizing what's the area of growth for them as a business. And if you're a retail business, usually you look internally and you see, e-commerce is where I'm seeing growth. Overall retail is stagnating. When we look at global e-commerce trends, we're seeing that it's increasing by $1 trillion more than the year before, which is tremendous. So this is becoming super important for brands, but now e-commerce makes up 15% of all retail, which is a dramatic number. But that's not to say, the big misconception is brick and mortar stores are dying a slow and painful death and will ultimately be extinct. And while we are seeing tons of retailers that are closing locations here in the UK, US, and globally, there is a gradual transformation around that, which a lot of smart retailers are starting to recognize the power of their brick and mortar stores and starting to embrace them. We're looking at, for example, looking at Apple and their in-store experience. And experience is really what it's about. It's embodying the brand and creating an element of consumers to engage with their family and friends and combining commerce with entertainment. Going into some stores that might have in-store cooking experiences or makeup trialing or personal styling. So it's really creating something that is not necessarily available online and helping to drive people in-store and get them more excited when it comes to the shopping experience. And what becomes interesting is that no one loves that more than the youngest generation. And the assumption is the younger the generation, the more they're going to be about being online. And we looked at millennials and they were all about online shopping. But for Generation Z, they're actually enjoying the hands-on experience and spending time in a physical store. That does come with a big caveat though. These shoppers are doing it with their phones during the journey. They're actually utilizing their phone during that in-store experience. So again, combining that online and offline world. It becomes very interesting when we think about, retailers closing their brick and mortar locations. Are some interesting players that are opening up stores and starting to dive into the physical location pool. Amazon is opening up a number of locations, and they have U.S. bookstores now. They have convenience centers, grocery pickup locations. So, for a retailer that actually really, spearheaded the entire e-commerce proposition, it's quite interesting to see why they're doing this. And it's really about recognizing the power of OmniChannel. Their missing link there was being able to create that in-store experience and be able to tap into offline data. And we're actually seeing that Amazon is now also scouting out locations here in the UK. So what's happening in the US will soon translate here in Europe as well. The best element of creating that in-store experience is leaning on technology in itself. So when we go to these in-store experiences, whether it's the Apple Store or so forth, it's all about utilizing technology to enhance that shopping experience and really enhance that purchase point. There's some great examples, here in the UK, if anyone's shopped within Selfridges or the Charlotte Tilbury store, they have what they call a wonder mirror, which is I don't even need to try on any of the makeup. I can just look in the physical mirror and it curates the image that I'm looking for, which excites that shopping experience. It helps in time convenience and really tells you if what you're looking for is going to work for you. So it's really taking technology and taking it a step further. I'm going to hand it over to my friend Caroline here, who's going to now walk us through what's the mobile impact on all this.
Just step into how mobile impacts on the channel, and I think that's really been a key driver in the phenomenon that we're seeing at the moment. So Nicole's just kind of taken us through how Gen Z respond to mobile and shopping, but it's not just Gen Z. 8 out of 10 consumers are now using a computer, a mobile, or technology within store while shopping. And I think that comes as no surprise because anecdotally from my own behaviour, be that in John Lewis or within the supermarket to search for sort of recipe terms, I think we're all getting quite used to doing that. But what does that mean? So if we kind of think around showrooming, and this is the notion that people are searching online and potentially looking for different price points. But I think from Criteo's latest data, it's becoming quite evident that it's not just a price-stimulated search. Consumers nowadays are also looking for kind of reviews, they're looking for similar items, and essentially just looking to really inform that purchase point. So ultimately what retailers really need to be doing at the moment, and the way that we're working with some of our clients, is to ensure that that information is readily accessible. So either on their own site or working with their retail partners to ensure that consumers can access that easily. But it is also around showrooming. So Nicole's just mentioned, you know, the likes of Selfridges creating those experiences. And some of our clients, such as Burberry, even a couple of years ago, were using technology to create those sort of technology-first omni-channel experiences. And it's really around making sure that it is the best end-to-end experience. And from a consumer point of view, you know, the benefits are endless. So it could be redeploying, you know, the stuff within the shop to create that experience, removing checkout and, you know, using mobile to join up the loop, which means that there's no more waiting in line to check out your groceries. Could even potentially be no more searching through inventory stocks, so using mobile as the device which hands that information to the consumer. But ultimately, as Nicole mentioned, this is all about that end-to-end experience. And just stepping away from showrooming as well, so looking at mobile as its own distinct channel, I think this will clearly be no surprise to most people on the webinar, that it is now becoming the main commerce point. So within the UK and Japan, year on year, it's overtaken desktop transactions. And I think all but one of these markets are seeing significant growth in mobile transaction behaviour. And I think what's really interesting here as well is that this is last click transactions. But what we also know as well is obviously mobile is assisting in a number of retail transactions. So actually the benefits of being on mobile and leveraging the device to drive performance goes far beyond just the end transaction we can see in these numbers here. And also a similar challenge that we're used to working through with our retail clients. A few years ago, it very much was the case that average basket values would be smaller on mobile and tablet devices. But I think since the overall experience, you know, the mobile experience, the checkout, the security has improved, and also just consumers' behaviour has become more mobile native. And we're now also, more interestingly, I think, seeing the average basket values now growing on mobile versus desktop. So particularly here from, again, the Criteo data, you can see electronics is now overtaken. So value is higher on mobile compared to desktop. And the same is true of home goods. And obviously across all of these categories here, it's very much like for like, which is, you know, a really interesting opportunity when we think about performance and optimizing towards mobile. And then finally, and I think nicely, mobile closes the loop. So we've obviously talked initially about showrooming and taking people from those bricks and mortar stores and taking them online. Mobile is actually driving people back into store. So click and collect behaviour is obviously significantly grown to date and is forecast to grow significantly over the next 3 or 4 years. And interestingly as well, we tend to over-index on this in the UK actually. So I think within the UK, over half of consumers have recently used click and collect for non-food purchases versus about 27% in the US. So we're quite early adopters of this, and it's certainly set to grow. And there's obviously some brands up here, so Asda, Debenhams and Argos, who are very successful using it. And if I think about other kind of examples, so Selfridges, I think last year were testing their sort of buy, click and collect. And now they're kind of optimizing that further and looking at sort of free parking initiatives. So not only optimizing the online experience, but making sure that it is very, very much an end-to-end consumer-centric solution.
Thanks, Caroline. Now we're going to look at, you know, what does this all mean for brands? Obviously, you know, the change in shopping behavior in the retail landscape brings with it many new challenges that perhaps they didn't previously face. So we're going to take a look at some of the core challenges at hand today, which include scaling across multiple retailers, ensuring product discovery, standing out in a mobile-first world, and finally, emerging brand competitors. So shopping is a multifaceted journey, and while many shoppers begin that step on the retailer site, for that example of me still in the hunt for this amazing dress for the weekend, I started on a retailer, but I went to multiple retailers, and that's the norm. People, when they are in the market for a product, they're checking the price point and reviews across a number of different sites. And this we are seeing regardless of product category, with the exception of perhaps grocery. And really with it brings a new challenge, and that is the complexity that comes with it. When we're looking at if a brand is trying to understand the results, shopper behavior, and data across all of these different retailers and channels that all are siloed and all have their own specific data streams, that's quite challenging for them to take in-house and internally measure. So when they are on the site, though, what products are the shoppers seeing? The retailer algorithms, not surprisingly, are biased to the retailers themselves. It's their site. They're going to be surfacing the products that are in their best interest. Very often it's the products on sale, stock that they're looking to move, things that have the lowest price point, which is going to obviously most likely drive a shopper conversion and keep that shopper on their site. But for brands, priorities are much, much different. It's about the new product, that shiny new item that's just gone live. There's a lot of upper funnel marketing activity behind it. We need to be driving sales for it. Or potentially just the hero product, perhaps that high-end TV that might not be showing up first in the results because the results are showing the older models that are on sale. So how can brands overcome this when they feel that there is little control over what the retailers are serving? The mobile challenges also create a new layer, mostly affected, particularly within the grocery space. We see 40% of online grocery shopping is via a mobile device. And really, what does that mean? Grocery brands have been traditionally successful about securing great visibility within the brick and mortar store, whether it's the eye level position on the shelf or the end cap of the aisle. This has been the traditional tactic which brands have taken. But now when we look at the mobile device, we have brands that are now working with 40 competitors in a category for product placement of 4 units. So how do brands answer for that? How do they ensure that this growth of mobile grocery shopping is not impacting visibility and ultimately their sales? And when we look at mobile, we have to definitely take into account, what is the ad format? Native is key when it comes to mobile. It's going to be necessary for any type of mobile responsive site. It's going to be necessary in terms of visibility within the mobile device. So this is definitely something that is really key for brands to take into account in terms of where they are actually in mobile activity. What is the ad format? How is it appearing to consumers? Finally, competition. This is something that's become quite interesting. Obviously there's always existed, main competition for brands, whether it's Coca-Cola versus Pepsi, LG versus Samsung, and so forth. And grocery brands always had the unique situation where they were often faced with, the grocer's own label brand. So whether it's the own milk or own fizzy drink option, that's always existed. But there's a new player at hand, and that's Amazon. Amazon's now getting into the space of creating their own private label products. And while Amazon has traditionally always been a threat for retailers, it's now starting to emerge as a threat for brands themselves. I'm seeing now how Amazon, of course, being such a dominant player in the retail space, is really pushing their own label products. So, what is the brand answer to that? So we've seen some of the core challenges here, but luckily there are a great deal of solutions that brands can help overcome those issues. So we're going to look at some of the omni-channel marketing solutions that could be actioned. So here at Criteo, we are focused on the user. Now, traditionally, shopper media has been great about leveraging and understanding data from a shopper channel, which has worked well, but we're seeing that shoppers are across a number of different channels. So the key is following the user in itself. So with Criteo, we are able to effectively manage that working off of our core technology, which is focused on cross-device and user matching. And this is applied across the 3 products Criteo offers, which is the core of the Criteo proposition, which is remarketing, predictive search, which is an optimized Google shopping tool, and finally, Criteo sponsored products, which we'll take a look at a bit more. And to really reach a shopper, it's important to tap into this cross-device opportunity to ensure that we're actually understanding that shopper as they go through different devices. Now, it used to be that shoppers had perhaps 2 devices, their laptop and phone, but now we're actually seeing people are working across multiple devices, expanding even beyond the 2. So this becomes even more challenging, but ultimately more important to understand that behavior. So what's the difference and what's the effect of following the user rather than the channel itself? So this is taking a look at the comparison when we look at targeting a device-centric view versus a user-centric view. And this is really accounting for the undercounting of actual users that are seen when you're concentrating on a specific device and really what's missing out here. We're really driving home that it's important today in this omni-channel world to be focusing on the user rather than the channel. So one of the effective ways to answer a number of the challenges we've brought up is the sponsored product proposition. And the core of this is taking your product and ensuring it's in front of shopper when it's on the retailer. So if a shopper starts on a retailer page, as we can see here with the Macy's example, we're ensuring your coffee product is in front of the shopper. It drives them to the product detail page and ultimately the buy button. And then it answers for the multi-tab effect. This is a network solution, so it's ensuring as that shopper is looking for that coffee machine, or I'm still in the market for that dress, and I'm going to these different retailers, you are in front of that shopper throughout that whole process to make sure that you're maintaining your position in their consideration before they ultimately make the decision to buy. So why and how does this work? It's native auction-based cost per click ads embedded into a network of retailer sites and their apps. So wherever your product is relevant within the Criteo sponsor network, we will ensure it's in front of relevant shoppers. And if you're a market leader and you have great visibility, this answers that algorithm challenge where the products that I want to be in front of the shoppers aren't getting the visibility it needs. So in effect, it's a way for you to control the digital shelf. It's completely automated. It's just taking the product listing as it already exists on these retailers and enhancing its visibility. It's effectively proven to grow incremental sales via the data we have at hand. Not surprisingly, if you're taking your product and getting it in front of more shoppers, it will increase sales, but the key point to this is being able to quantify and measure that. And this is something that can be done at the SKU level. So how do we attribute for those sales? We talked about that user-centric view. We look at all of the sales that are coming across the retailers. And to ensure that we're following that shopper behavior, it's attributing sales between the different retailers, between the different devices, and even if chosen, including sales that might be influenced from the retailer and ultimately happening on a brand.com as well. Really making sure that we're connecting the dots as best as possible through this omni-channel process. When we talk about the network, it is the world's largest network. Our network from a transaction and audience size does exceed that of Amazon. So this is really saying, in terms of representation of shoppers out there, if it's about scalability and a global proposition, this is something that can be looked at across markets. We can see here a number of key UK retailers, Netherlands, France, and the US. So the ability to reach shoppers regardless of their retailer of choice is the fundamental value here. And of course, a number of brands are already utilizing this today, as we can see here, based on some great names that we're seeing here, that the proposition does work. And we're seeing market leaders. So again, going back to that controlling the digital shelf, new products. So even some of these big players here are recognizing that this is something, for them to be ultimately driving sales for new products or what they care about, they need to be executing very clear omni-channel strategies. So a couple of takeaways for the multi-channel world. Always on strategy to match shopper behavior. We need to take a look at what's happening out there and understanding what the shopper is doing and making sure that we're there throughout that process. Being mobile, everyone's on their mobile phones, and we need to accept that and adapt to it, whether through its ad formatting or utilizing sponsored product opportunities or anything similar of that nature. Test and learn with performance-based marketing. It's first figuring out what works for you as a brand, trying different models. I think it's a changing world, and marketing plans need to change accordingly as well, and trialing different opportunities, and most importantly, being able to attribute what works. We saw that using a user-centric approach helps reach more shoppers and understand what those shoppers are doing, which will help you better understand, is my marketing execution working? And finally, using sponsored products to drive awareness and sales is the loop to answer some of those core challenges of visibility of uniform data solutions across multiple retailers. I think the next step, and what Caroline's going to take you to, is really looking at this specifically. How has this been applied with success for brands out there today? So we have a number of brands that we've worked with through iProspect that have achieved great success with addressing omni-channel.
Thanks, Paul. Yes, we've got a long-standing relationship with Criteo, using them really successfully to drive performance for our clients. So I'm just going to take you through a couple of examples today. The first of which is Intel. So Intel, I think most people hopefully be aware that they are one of the primary components within PCs. But obviously, as more people have been going and purchasing mobiles and tablets and, dare I say, Apple Macs, we've seen a bit of a decline within the PC kind of world. And obviously that had a knock-on impact on Intel and their sales. So one of the things that they really looked to do a couple of years back was to develop a new category and a new proposition. And they did that with this two-in-one device. And that really is, it's tablet come laptop. And it has a number of benefits, which I won't go into too much detail on because I'm not a salesperson for them. But they, better battery life, touchscreen, seamlessly integrated with Windows. But this presented a new challenge. So they had a new category, new product proposition, which was very exciting. But it was at a higher price point. And also, with it being new category, there was a lack of awareness out there. So Intel's core challenge in this instance was to make sure that they were stocked and sold with as many retailers as possible, and also across their global footprint, which is significant. So we worked very closely with Criteo on this to develop a solution. First of all, through their network, we were able to do this across most of the markets that Intel wanted to gain traction in. So this example here is from the US, so Best Buy and Staples being a couple of the key retailers that we worked with. And through those native SKU placements across the retailers, we were able to drive awareness. And this is not just within the sort of product line, but this is outside of it. So as consumers were looking for tablet solutions, notebook solutions, we were able to ensure that Intel were up front and centre on these pages, and typically in positions that they wouldn't or may not have been able to have been in, just based on their attractiveness to retailers with that higher price point and slightly lower consumer awareness as this product launched. So what did it drive? So for Intel specifically, we were able to gain some really valuable market share data from Criteo, which has been invaluable for Intel, to be honest. So 23% improvement in market share. Obviously an increase in page coverage, so 41%. And then actually looking at the hard number of units sold, so 7% increase there. I think what's really important is that this is, it's beneficial to Intel. So we're seeing, direct performance driven, and also to the retailers themselves who are able to drive ad revenues through these sort of native placements. The second example I wanted to share with you was for our other client, Diageo. So they have a primary business challenge in that they are obviously looking to sell drinks, beverages within supermarkets and other retailers. And their challenge really is that consumers will go into a supermarket or purchase online and may not stay brand loyal. And there may be a number of vodka brands they'll purchase, a number of rum brands. So for Diageo, it's really a twofold challenge in that they want to drive awareness and make sure that they're in the consideration phase across the relevant consumer set, and also to capture demand. So again, Criteo was instrumental for us in driving that online performance. So worth noting that this was an offline and online challenge, but we worked significantly with Criteo on the online portion. And we leveraged, again, Criteo sponsored product ads. So you can see in the example here, it's on Asda, but working across their entire network to ensure that, that Diageo brands were not just highly ranking within the product pages, but also, again, it's that cross-sell awareness that we were looking to drive. So whether it was a barbecue page or a general grocery page, making sure that we were following relevant customers to increase awareness, and then obviously capturing that demand. And I think what's really interesting here as well is that we were able to have the click and collect placement higher than the actual online purchase. So again, referring to that closing the loop and ensuring that we're joining up the two channels. And for Diageo in particular, again, really standout results. So that market share category data that Criteo have been able to provide, so 84% improvement. And that's led to an absolutely phenomenal return on ad spend. And that's, through the awareness, but also all the way through to the actual purchase on site. So a couple of examples of how we've really leveraged Criteo to kind of drive that full funnel awareness all the way through to business performance.
The presentation gave some great insights into how omnichannel marketing really can become a reality for marketers. This is Justin again, in case anyone's got something like that. I've got loads of questions that have come in during the course of those talks. I'm going to pick some of my favourites. That's my prerogative in this nice position, and put in a couple of my own. Got one here I think I'll start with. Again, this committee, all these questions, Nicole and Caroline, jump in if you wish, either of you. First one is, it's about location. I think it's quite interesting because we're, again, covering location-based marketing so much in the drum. And Nick asks, I guess this is initially to Caroline, have you run any campaigns using location-based data? He says, like iBeacons or something similar.
Yes, we have. So yeah, this is definitely an increasing area for us. So at the moment, we're working with a number of partners to get hold of location-based data. And I think it's fair to say there's an increasing number of partners out there who are looking to provide this. So at the moment, we work with the likes of Google, but others in getting hold of this, and also developing the offering with Criteo. And I think we're seeing great results from that so far. But what is even more interesting is where the space is going to go to, like this year and next. So looking at beacons being rolled out further, so getting hold of hyper-local measurement data. And that's something that we're talking to a number of clients about at the moment.
Fantastic. Okay, you've got a question here from Angela. Again, this is to either of you. Maybe Nicole, you could take this one to start off. Angela asks, does sponsored products affect the retail algorithms?
Not directly, but it does have an indirect influence. So as you can imagine, if you're taking your product and bringing it top of the shelf, you're ultimately going to be getting more clicks against that product. And what that will effectively do is start to influence the organic retailer algorithm, not only for that product, but typically there's a halo effect. That consumer, if let's say you're an HP laptop and they've clicked on that, they might now be in brand and will start clicking on some other HP laptops, which will have that halo lift for the organic product as well. And we typically see that for our brand advertisers where they might be running across 3 core SKUs and they start seeing a lift across many of the other products within the results.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, another question. I think this one is to you, Nicole, but obviously either of you jump in. It's from Shai. I mean, this is more of a sort of a product question, I guess, but of a sort of a techie question. He asks, where do the native ads on retailers' sites link to? Where do they take the user? And I guess he means, are you taking the user to the product page within that retailer site or taking them off-site?
You're taking them to the product detail page of that site. So when you think of a retailer shop and you're looking for a laptop and you see a number of laptop results, we're just controlling that and allowing a brand to be the first ones to appear, which will in effect bring the shopper to that product detail page. And then the value for the retailers is this is media that's keeping the shopper on their site, which ultimately is what the retailers want.
Superb, thank you. Okay, got a question here from Steve. And we often get this sort of question. There's been quite a few of the similar sort of questions because obviously a lot of this potentially more advanced marketing techniques people think are just for the larger brands, the Unilevers and the Walmarts of the world. But Steve asks, he points to the fact that you said 56% of click and collect in the UK versus 27% in the US. Hooray, he says in brackets. But is this suitable for all brands? You know, can click and collect be a great panacea for any brand, no matter what your size? I guess is the question.
So I'll take on this one. So if we think about grocery and items that consumers, want every week, every month, I think it really lends itself to that because I think there's less of the experience of the product that you have before. So yeah, I think it absolutely can be relevant if you've got
Hi everyone, sorry we've had a slight technical issue, but I believe Nicole and Caroline are coming back online now.
Hello? I'm going to go that answer. Apologies.
Can you hear us now?
Hello?
Hi. Hi. We lost you for a bit there. Hi, it's Justin again. Let me get back to these questions, of which they just keep flooding in. I've got a question here from James. He says, you talked about native advertising earlier in your presentation, Nicole. What does this mean for the relationships we need to strike directly with publishers? And again, I'm surmising here what he means is how closely do marketers need to work now with actual publishers?
That's definitely a very vary from publisher to publisher. What's their capability? I think, looking at the sponsored products, there's a native solution. So I think seeking out opportunities with vendors that at the core are native, and then having conversations with people that we work with native opportunities back end. A lot of times that we might be seeing on-site native on-site placement. Can you hear me guys okay?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I'm going to go across now to another question here I've got from Scott. He says, again, this is open to either of you, are omni-channel shoppers really more valuable? I guess this cuts to the casserole our discussion. Are omnichannel shoppers really worth the effort?
Maybe not. I think, it's an emerging world, and we can't ignore the behavior. We need to be addressing it. We can't necessarily want, it's more valuable than the other. I think we're clearly seeing there's a growth of this behavior. So ultimately, everyone is becoming this type of shopper. So that, I think, is the key to it, and recognizing that this is kind of the new world order. And there's the data element. I think, brands are getting tasked more and more internally about measuring sales. And to get that full story, it's recognizing this behavior and looking into all of those details across it.
Fantastic. Caroline, any thoughts there?
Where initially we were looking at data and thinking that they potentially were more valuable, but we're now starting to kind of interrogate that data, I think, more for some of our retailers. And I think actually it's about saying, are they more valuable, or are we just actually measuring them in a slightly different way now? I think, again, going back to kind of thinking about beacons and where measurement is going to go to this year, I think we'll probably have more answers this year and next. But I think it's difficult to say at this point. But Nicole's point, it's all about making sure that we've got as much data as possible and that we're interrogating it to get to the answer.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So again, I'm going to say this is another question we get almost every webinar we run, which sometimes 2 a month. Similar to my question earlier about being suitable for all brands, this comes in from what's the same? Sorry, this comes in from Camilla, and she says, great insight throughout the talks, but what does this mean for me in the B2B industry? So again, what can B2B brands take from your sort of insights and discussion around omnichannel marketing? What does it mean for them?
I mean, obviously kind of working with Intel as one of our core examples, and the other B2B brands that we work with that do provide technology solutions. And we know that B2B is obviously very much the same kind of vertical and niche, but also that the people that we're kind of selling to there are still consumers. So we tend to work with Intel and kind of apply a lot of the learnings from the B2C work that we do within that space as well. And obviously what we're talking about today is kind of retailer and product focus. So I think it will probably be its own webinar in its own right if we were to talk about kind of B2B and omnichannel. But again, it just depends on those products and services. And whether they are across the online and offline world and how much they blur, and again leveraging mobile to connect the dots more thoroughly.
Fantastic. Well, a B2B special coming up.
Excellent.
I've got a question here from Alice. She asks, well, she says, love the presentation. What tips have you got for how omnichannel would affect my marketing team's structure? Big question, but how are you seeing team structures changing in this omnichannel world?
So that's actually a great question, to be honest, and that's one of the, we didn't bring it up as a challenge, but it is a challenge I've seen in speaking with brands today. We talked about previously things siloed, and brand teams were siloed. You had a shopper marketing team on one side, you had a marketing team on one side, sales sitting somewhere else, and those teams didn't speak very often. They didn't really tie into what everyone was doing. And I think it's becoming more important to have a bit more synergy around that. And omnichannel is pushing that forward. If someone's on their TV, that would just be marketing's world. But if it's about, now I'm on an online store, well, that's shopper marketing, and it's all tying in together. There's not to say there's best practice on how brands need to be restructured, but we are starting to see more collaboration between the teams, because some brands are starting to recognize that working hand in hand is becoming a fundamental need.
Fantastic. Caroline, what tips have you got for you seeing how your clients are sort of restructuring for omnichannel?
Yeah, so we're seeing, brands, so some of our clients for either online or offline, and the question earlier as well around location. How can we ingest offline performance data? How can we ingest offline performance data so that we're not just investing from an online and offline point of view, but also looking at performance from an online and offline point of view. And I think brands that are starting to take small steps are starting with those sort of basics from an investment and a reporting point of view, first of all.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Let's move on to another, it's more of a sort of granular product-y question from Dom. And he asks, how granular, there's that word again, how granular can the CSP targeting be? Nicole, that's one for you, I think.
Yeah, it can be fairly granular. It depends on what the brand objective is. You know, if you are looking to target a very specific category, you know, we can do that. Usually we recommend to keep it broad. If you're looking to drive incremental sales, why not reach, you know, a larger shopper base? So it's really up to what the client objectives are. We work with clients that are, I sell, you know, lawn mowers, and I only want to reach people that are looking for robotic lawn mowers. Fair enough. But we have other clients that might be selling the same product and want to be on the homepage of a retailer over Father's Day because they think that would be kind of an impulse purchase that makes sense. So it's really up to the brand in terms of what are they trying to achieve ultimately.
Superb, thank you. I think as you're speaking, as it were, keep to you for the next question, Nicole, especially because it comes directly from your earlier presentation. When you first kicked off, in fact, Anthony says, love the Wonder Mirror example. That was when you're talking about how to make in-store far more interactive. Do you think this sort of technology is going to go mainstream? That's out to both of you. Nicole, I guess you start. You mentioned it first in your presentation.
Yes, in terms of something that will be available to shoppers, I think that would probably be far out. Of that specific Wonder Mirror being available in every girl's bathroom, probably I don't see that in the near future. But in terms of similar propositions with stores, absolutely. I think stores are now wanting to drive footfall, and what can they do to entice a shopper in? And it's doing things like that. It's having events. It's going to be having really interesting technology that excites the shopper. Someone that, to create that element of, I've looked online, oh, but wait, I know Selfridges has that cool thing there. I'm going to go in and, have some fun with that before I purchase. And I think we're going to see this is going to become quite more commonplace with a number of different stores. When you think of, Argos has completely digitized most of their stores. It's pretty straightforward, but it is about, the store's complete technology. We had the Wonder Mirror example. There's tons of different examples like that, and you're going to start seeing this through most of the stores you shop in within the next couple of years.
Fantastic, and we'll look forward to that. First, we're going to run towards the end of time. I've got a few more questions I'll try and get through. There's one here from Tom I particularly liked. Again, this is open to either of you. He picked up on your presentation, Nicole. He says, what tips do you have for the brand challenge from Amazon you mentioned? Obviously, you talked about Amazon being the new competitor. He says, what tips have you got? How I can develop a strategy to compete?
Yeah, I think for that, it's one, recognizing that's happening early on and start competing with that. I think it's making sure you have great visibility across all other retailers. It's going to be utilizing solutions like sponsored products and AMS even. The challenge with AMS is obviously Amazon's pushing their white label, so that thus requires you to utilize AMS to overcome that. I think it's making sure your product is readily available and reminding people that this is an alternative. One of the interesting challenges that's appearing now is voice search. When you look at, if you have an Amazon Echo and you ask to buy batteries, they're going to offer you their white label batteries in this size and that pack. And then, finally they're going to say I have no other options, but, what about, Duracell batteries? Where are those? And so brands need to start using every other tactic that we've talked about here to make sure that the shopper is not forgetting about their product and keeping them in front of the shopper. We've done some interesting things around white labels with sponsored products. So, one example here in the UK was a milk brand. Milk is a product that most shoppers tend to just easily buy at the store label. So this milk brand utilized sponsored products to get better shelf placement and get in front of shoppers. Utilized cross-category targeting, putting milk in the fruit and cereal aisles to spur purchase. And really what they saw was a dramatic lift in their market share of milk, which is essentially against those white label products. So it's easy, if you get your product in front of the shopper, we can get them to purchase it over the white label.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Right there. I've got a question here from Agnes, which again I quite liked. I'm being very picky here. Agnes says, I loved all the mobile stats and information. Do tablets differ? And again, I'm sort of putting words in people's mouth, but I guess she's saying, do marketers now in an omnichannel world have to develop different strategies for tablets than the mobile phone?
Yes, absolutely. So we look at a very distinct strategy for desktop, tablet and mobile. And I guess when we're thinking about omnichannel, the intent behind tablet is very different to mobile. So tablet, we tend to see people within the home or at work. It's less on the go. So we really adopt kind of mobile as that kind of way to connect online and offline. Tablet less so, but it's all about looking at the data, looking at how consumers are using tablet versus desktop, so what messaging is resonating, what purchase decisions being made across each device. And so it's absolutely, it needs to be kind of a device-specific strategy. And then to Nicole's point as well, I think the opportunities on mobile are going to just exponentially expand as we see voice search take over. And I don't think it's quite clear to what degree that's going to happen across devices like desktop and tablet over the next few years compared to mobile.
Fantastic. Okay, we are almost up against it, so I'm going to end with a question of my own. To both of you, what would be your top 3 pieces of advice or top 1 piece of advice to listeners who want to make sure they're ready for the omnichannel world and how they can get their company ready? 1 piece of advice. That could be a website to read. That could be employ Criteo. What's their 1 piece of advice or a mindset state to make sure they're ready for the omnichannel world?
Shall I go first? I'll take this one first. I mean, it's so difficult because there's so many tactics and so many things that need to be employed to get this right. But I think the very first starting point is to put yourselves in your consumer shoes. I think as we've been walking through this, and myself and Nicole were talking about it yesterday, and just thinking about the ways that we shop. So, like I said, going into a supermarket and searching for recipe terms, I think just, stepping back, looking at how consumers are actually engaging across these devices is the very first port of call. And then it's about employing the right strategy and measuring it correctly. So as much data as we can possibly get our hands on to take that strategy forward.
Put yourself in consumer shoes. Excellent tip. So Nicole, what's your 1 piece of advice or top 3 pieces of advice, or what's your 1 thing you want to leave the listeners with?
I guess I have to leave 2, because the first one, of course, would be to utilize Criteo sponsored products. I think that would be a great tactic to utilize. But I think it's also really recognizing the value of multiple retailers. Very often brands can get a bit too concentrated on particular retailers, whether it's Amazon, whether it's a different property. I think it's realizing that, as we talked about omnichannel, it's a multifaceted retailer world. People are going in-store, they're going offline. And I think it's important to just keep an open view. And it goes back to putting yourself in the consumer's shoes, but it's in recognizing that not to get too focused on one element.
Fantastic. I think we're going to wrap up there. So I want to say thank you so much to all our listeners. I just want to underscore the point that yes, everyone that's registered will be sent a copy of this actually a video recording of this presentation. You'll probably get it later on today, tomorrow morning, depends how energetic we're feeling. But thank you so much. I want to say thank you so much to Nicole, and thank you to Caroline. Absolutely fascinating presentations and huge amounts of insight there. And as we know, the Drum will continue to keep covering this subject almost every day. So again, Nicole, Caroline, thank you so much, and thank you so much everyone for listening. Goodbye.